Hi everyone, welcome to WION Live broadcast from New York City. I'm your host, Susan Tehrani. First, let's get you up to speed with this hour's headlines. In a major development from Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dissolves the six-member war cabinet. The widely expected move comes after the departure of centrist former leader and General Benny Gantz. Vladimir Putin to visit North Korea for June 18th to the 19th. After this friendly state visit, the Russian president will be on a two-day visit to Vietnam to advance comprehensive strategic partnership with Hanoi. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and his Indian counterpart Ajit Doval attend annual meeting of the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies in New Delhi. He also meets External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. The U.S. soldier that's being held in Russia denies threatening Russian women with murder, but pleads partially guilty to theft in court. Gordon Black was arrested in early May in Russia while visiting a woman he met and dated in South Korea. White House says Amos Hochstein, a senior Biden advisor, will travel to Israel today for meetings to avoid further escalation between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah militants of Lebanon. Hyundai Motor shares hit record high as investors bet on the South Korean automaker's plan to list its India unit in Mumbai. The IPO is expected to help boost Hyundai's presence in the world's third biggest auto market. And American golfer Bryson DeChambeau wins his second U.S. Open title with a one-shot victory over Rory McIlroy, whose 10-year major drought continues after a late collapse at Pinehurst. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dissolved the six-member war cabinet. Netanyahu's far-right coalition of partners have been pushing for a new war cabinet after Benny Gantz's resignation earlier this month. The dissolution was anticipated as far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and a Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich had been lobbying to be added to the war cabinet. Netanyahu is now expected to hold consultations about the Gaza war with a small group of ministers, including Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer. The war cabinet was formed after Gantz joined Netanyahu in a national unity government at the start of the war in October. Gantz and Eisenkot both left the government last week over what they said was Netanyahu's failure to form a strategy for the Gaza war. And continuing with Israel, there have been growing disagreements between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli military. In the latest, according to reports, Netanyahu has criticized plans by military to implement daily tactical pauses of 11-hour in fighting along with the main roads in Gaza. The move was aimed to facilitate aid deliveries into the Palestinian enclave. The military has said that normal operations will continue in Rafah, the main focus of its operations in southern Gaza, where 8 soldiers were killed on Saturday. Most of the killed soldiers laid to rest on Sunday were killed in a blast in Rafah on Saturday morning in what marked the deadliest incident for the IDF in the Strip since January. Okay, our next report tells you a lot more about what happened.
Mourners on Sunday buried Israeli military officer Wassim Mahmoud, the commander, who was killed in the Gaza Strip along with 7 of his soldiers on Saturday. At the funeral, an officer said Mahmoud led his soldiers, quote, with bravery, determination, and professionalism. Mahmoud was a member of Israel's Druze minority, a sect whose faith draws its roots from Islam. The Israeli military said Mahmoud and his squad were traveling inside an armored personnel carrier in a convoy of vehicles in the southern city of Rafah on Saturday. Here's Army spokesperson Daniel Hagari.
According to the information we have, at this point a strong explosion occurred in one of the engineering vehicles in the convoy, apparently caused by an explosive device planted in the area or as a result of an anti-tank missile being fired. Inside the armoured carrier were the 8 fighters who were killed.
The armed wing of the Hamas militant group said the vehicle had been trapped in a prepared minefield. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday called the casualties, quote, another heartbreaking price in our just war for the defense of our homeland. And he pledged again to stick with his military objectives, the destruction of the Hamas militant group and the return of all Israeli hostages held in Gaza. On Saturday, the Israeli police released this footage purporting to show parts of an operation last weekend that rescued 26-year-old Noah Argamani and 3 others who were taken captive on October 7th. Reuters was not able to independently verify the date or the location the video was filmed. Despite growing international pressure for a ceasefire, an agreement to halt the fighting still appears distant, more than 8 months since the start of the war in the Palestinian enclave. But Israel's military on Sunday said it would hold daily tactical pauses in combat operations along a main road in southern Gaza to allow more aid to flow into the area. The war erupted when Hamas fighters rampaged through southern Israel on October 7th, killing 1,200 and taking more than 250 captives, according to Israeli tallies. Israel's retaliatory airstrikes and ground invasion have killed more than 37,000 Palestinians, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Israeli forces have been closing in on Rafah, where it claims brigades of Hamas fighters remain entrenched.
All right, moving on. After the G7 leaders warned China on the supply of weapons parts and components to Russia, Beijing on Monday responded with a harsh statement over the issue, terming it full of prejudice, arrogance, and lies. In a strongly worded statement issued by a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson, Lin Jian criticized the G7, calling the joint statement manipulated China's related issues. The China Foreign Ministry said that G7 allegations were rehashed cliches that have no factual basis, no legal basis, no moral justification. The group of 7, made up of the United States, Japan, France, Germany, Canada, Britain, and Italy, also took aim at China for incursions in the South China Sea. Take a listen.
The G7 summit statement once again manipulated China-related issues, slandered and attacked China, rehashed cliches that have no factual basis, no legal basis, and no moral justification, and are full of arrogance, prejudice, and lies.
The G7 had issued the joint statement protesting China's alleged contributions in Russia's war efforts in Ukraine following the G7 summit held in Italy. The accusations leveled against China include sending dual-use materials to Russia like drones, missile technology, satellite imagery, and CNC machines as well. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he will hold peace talks with Russia only if Moscow pulls out all of its troops from Ukrainian territory. Speaking at the Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland, Zelensky once again asserted that Putin would not end the war and had to be stopped by military or diplomatic means. The two-day talks at the Swiss Alpine Resort was attended by over 90 countries, with dozens of countries committing to Ukraine's territorial integrity. The meeting concluded with a final document being adopted, which blamed the war's widespread suffering and destruction firmly on Russia. However, several countries, including India, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia, did not sign it.
The vast majority of more than 90 countries attending a Swiss summit on peace for Ukraine supported its final declaration as it concluded on Sunday. Initiated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the two-day summit at the Swiss Alpine Resort of Burgenstock aimed to find a consensus on how to end the war in Ukraine.
I'm confident that together we will ensure the result. The first and the second peace summits should unite our joint work on the details of peace.
Many Western leaders voiced condemnation of Russia's invasion and rejected President Vladimir Putin's demands for parts of Ukraine as a condition for peace. However, some countries attended the summit did not put their name to the communiqué, including Mexico, Saudi Arabia and India. There was no clarity on whether future talks would involve Russia. Swiss President Viola Amherd.
A lasting solution must involve both parties. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the discussions over the past 2 days have shown that there are different points of view. All the more important is our understanding that the path towards peace in Ukraine must be pursued on the basis of international law and, in particular, the United Nations Charter.
Moscow, which was not invited, labeled the summit a waste of time. China was another notable absentee. The conference nevertheless underscored both the broad support Ukraine still enjoys from its allies, but also the challenges for any lasting ceasefire. A draft of the final declaration seen by Reuters refers to Russia's invasion as a war, a label Moscow rejects. It calls for Ukraine's control over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant and its Azov seaports to be restored and for Ukraine's territorial integrity to be respected. But in line with the conference's more modest stated aims, it omitted tougher issues on what a post-war settlement for Ukraine might look like and whether Ukraine could join the NATO alliance. The Kremlin did not rule out future talks with Kyiv, but said guarantees will be needed to ensure the credibility of any negotiations. Whether there will be a follow-up to the summit and where it will be held remained unclear.
NATO is adopting its nuclear arsenal in the face of security threats from Russia and China. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg called for the bloc to display its stockpile to the world and send a direct message. Stoltenberg revealed that there were live consultations between members on taking missiles out of storage and placing them on standby. This as Russia and China continue investing heavily in modern weaponry, including nuclear arsenal. As per a report by Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Russia has 5,580 warheads, U.S. has 5,044, and China has about 500. Meanwhile, the head of Ukraine's National Security Council has made a big claim that Russian President Vladimir Putin could order the use of tactical nuclear weapons if the country is rooted in war against Ukraine. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Russian officials have made frequent threats to launch nuclear weapons at Ukraine and Western countries as well. And amidst rising global tensions, expenditures on nuclear weapons has also increased. Expenditures on warheads is estimated to have risen by 13% to a record $91.4 billion in 2023 alone. This as per a survey by International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. The pressure group says that the expenditure is driven largely by a sharp increase in the U.S.'s defense budget. China is judged to be the second largest spender with a budget of $11.9 billion, followed by Russia with a budget of $8.3 billion. Okay, we have another report for you by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. This time it says that China is expanding its nuclear arsenal faster than any other country. From 410 nuclear warheads last year, China's military stockpile has grown to 500 as of January. However, when compared to the United States and Russia, China still falls short. As per the figures cited in this report, the U.S. inventory has 5,044 warheads. Russia, on the other hand, has 5,580. But there is a neck and neck as far as the intercontinental ballistic missiles are concerned. At present, China has 238 of them in its possession. The country is predicted to surpass America's holding of 800, or even Russia's total of 1,244 within the next years. Talking about readiness, China is believed to have deployed a small number of warheads during peacetime. Of China's 500 warheads, 24 were deployed as of January, according to this report. U.S., on the other hand, has rated nearly half of its warheads with 1,770 deployed. If we look at the global figures, there is estimated a total of 12,121 warheads, of which 9,585 are ready to use. 52-year-old Indian national Nikhil Gupta has been extradited from the Czech Republic to the United States on charges of allegedly plotting the assassination of Khalistani terrorist Gurpratwant Singh Panoon. Gupta is being currently held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. He is suspected by U.S. authorities of being involved in a failed plot to assassinate Panoon, a U.S. resident. In June last year, Gupta traveled from India to Prague